In this video, we're going to be taking a look at 9.2, multiplying by tens, hundreds, or thousands. We're going to start by looking at this place value chart to look at some patterns that help us visualize what happens whenever we multiply a number by 10. First, we see 12 times 10. If we take a look at the place value chart, we can see that when we multiply 12 by 10, each digit shifts over to the left by one place. So the tens moves to the hundreds and the ones moves to the tens. If we take a look at 1 times 10, our ones moves over to the tens place. Likewise, if we look at 1/10 and multiply that by 10, again we're still shifting over one place to the left. So we would move our tenths to our ones place. If we had 12 hundredths and we multiplied that by 10, then we would move each place over 1. So we would have 1, 1, and 2 tenths, or 1 and 2 tenths. In the last example, we saw that when we multiply a number by 10, we move each digit one place to the left. If we were to multiply 4 and 5 tenths times 10, the 4 would move to the tens place, and the 5 would move to the ones place. So 4 and 5 tenths times 10 would be 45. Another way of thinking about it is moving the decimal point one place to the right when you multiply by 10. So we would take our decimal point and we would move it one place to the right, which is how we would get 45. Next, let's look at 12 and 6 tenths and multiply that times 10. So we're going to shift every digit to the left. So the 1 moves to the hundreds place, the 2 moves to the tens place, and the 6 moves to the ones place. The other way of looking at it is taking our decimal point and moving it one place to the right. Finally, let's look at 25 and 78 thousandths and multiply that by 10. We're going to shift each place to the left, so the 2 moves to the hundreds place, the 5 moves to the tens place, the 0 moves to the ones place, the 7 moves to the tenths place, and the 8 moves to the hundredths place. Another way of looking at it is taking our decimal point and moving it one place to the right. Now we're going to take a look at how to multiply decimals by multiples of 10. If you remember back to earlier in the year when we were learning how to multiply by multiples of 10 with whole numbers, we broke apart the multiple of 10 into easier to multiply numbers. So if we were to look at the example 3 times 20, we can break apart 20 into 2 times 10 so that we can multiply 3 times 2 times 10. We can group the 3 and the 2 together and multiply that first, and then multiply that product times 10. So 3 times 2 is 6. We multiply that by 10. We get our product of 60. The same thing can be done when we multiply a decimal by a multiple of 10. So this time, we still break apart the 20 into 2 times 10, but now we have 3 tenths times 2 times 10. We can group together the 3 tenths and the 2 and multiply those first, and then multiply that product by 10. 3 tenths times 2 is equal to 6 tenths. When we multiply 6 tenths times 10, it equals 6. Let's look at one more quick example of multiplying a decimal by a multiple of 10. So again, we're going to break apart 20 into 2 times 10. So we'll multiply 33 hundredths times 2 times 10. We're going to group together 33 hundredths times 2 and then multiply that product by 10. 33 hundredths times 2 is equal to 66 hundredths, which when we multiply that by 10, we get 6 and 6 tenths. Now we're going to use the place value chart to help us visually see what happens when we multiply a number by 100 or 1000. When we multiply a number by 100, we're going to shift all of the digits over 2 places to the left. So if we were to multiply 3 times 100, we have 3 in the ones. We're going to shift that over 2 places so that it's in the hundredths place. If we were to multiply 3 by 1000, we would shift our ones over 3 places to the left, so our ones would move over to the thousands place. Likewise, if we were to multiply 3 thousandths times 100, we would take our 3 thousandths, we would move it over 2 places to the left, so our thousandths would move over to the tenths place, so we would have 3 tenths. If we multiplied 3 thousandths by 1000, we would shift our digit over 3 places to the left, which would move it all the way over to the ones place, so we would have 3 ones. We're going to take a look now at some examples of multiplying decimals by 100 and 1000. So for our first example, we have 3 and 9 hundredths, and we're going to multiply that by 100. So when we multiply by 100, we're going to move each digit 2 places to the left. So our 3 moves from the ones place to the hundreds place. Our 0 moves from the tenths place to the tens place. Our 9 moves from the hundredths place to the ones place. We can also think of it as moving our decimal point 2 places to the right. So our answer is 309. If we were to multiply 4 and 75 hundredths times 1000, we have to shift each place 3 digits to the left. So the 4 moves from the ones place to the thousands place. The 7 shifts from the tenths place to the hundreds place. The 5 moves from the hundredths place to the tens place. And then we have to add a 0. We can also think of it as moving our decimal point 3 places to the right. So we have 1 hop, 2 hops, 3 hops. And so we put in a 0. So our answer is 4,750. Now we're going to look at multiplying decimals by 10 squared and 10 cubed. Now remember, 10 squared is the same thing as 10 times 10, or 100. So whenever you multiply anything by 10 squared, you're multiplying it by 100. 10 cubed is the same thing as 10 times 10 times 10, or 1000. So whenever you multiply a number by 10 cubed, you're really multiplying it by 1000. So let's take a look at multiplying 125 thousandths by 10 squared. That's the same thing as multiplying 125 thousandths times 100. So we're going to move each digit 2 places to the left, and our answer would be 12 and 5 tenths. Now let's look at 3 and 6 thousandths times 10 cubed. So that's really the same thing as 3 and 6 thousandths times 1,000. So we're going to move every digit 3 places to the left, or move the decimal point 3 places to the right. So our answer would be 3006. If you ever get confused on which direction you need to move the digits, just remember that whenever you're multiplying a number by 10, 100, or 1,000, your number is going to get larger, not smaller. For our last example, we're going to multiply a decimal by a multiple of 100. Just like when we multiply by a multiple of 10, we're going to break apart our multiple of 100. So we're going to break apart 200 into 2 times 100. So if we multiply 8 tenths by 200, it becomes 8 tenths times 2 times 100. We're going to group together the 8 tenths times 2, which would equal 1 and 6 tenths, and then we multiply that by 100. When we multiply 1 and 6 tenths times 100, we're going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right, so it becomes 160. We can use the same process if we multiply by a multiple of 1,000. We're going to break apart 3,000 into 3 times 1,000. So we have 14 hundredths times 3 times 1,000. We're going to group together 14 hundredths times 3. We're going to multiply 14 hundredths times 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. 3 times 0 is 0. So our answer is 42 hundredths. And we go and multiply that by 1,000. So we're going to move the decimal point 3 places to the right, which means that our answer is 420.